Hello. I welcome you with open arms. So, then I said, that's what I said. And those were the first specialized hospitals for mental patients. All right. Rule number 1 of public speaking. Always remember to number your note cards. Rule number 2 of public speaking, never depend on note cards. All right. This has been a dramatization of something that happened to our eldest daughter recently. She had to give an oral presentation in class, and it was worth a lot of her mark. And it started poorly, and thank you for being my heart outside my body there. It started poorly, and it went quickly worse. And she debated whether to just bail and sit back down, but she kind of muddled through, took a deep breath and muddled through, and she actually got a decent mark in the class. But what stuck with me was what her professor said afterwards. She said, "Maddie, you showed great courage in that moment where everything was coming a cropper. And that will be more valuable ultimately to you than anything you learned in this class." And to me, it's hard to overstate the value of courage, especially social courage. And it's something that I guarantee you everybody in this room can relate to when you've had to present yourself in front of a group. And so that's kind of where we're going in today's service. Now, you may be wondering if you've made a mistake and you've accidentally blundered into a Tony Robbins seminar. But no, it is a church service, and I think this subject belongs in a place like this because there are fewer things more sacred than when people step up right over top of their note cards and show the world who they are. In 12-step groups, there's an acronym. And they use it to tell the story of how fear is such a strong emotion that it presents you immediately with 2 choices, and the first choice is so much easier to take. The first choice is to F everything and run. But we have a choice to do the harder thing, and it's the same acronym. Face everything and recover. Same acronym, very different outcome. And with that in mind, I'm going to welcome you and thank you all for coming, and we're going to go straight into 1084 in our own big book. Is it 1080? 1012. 1012 in our own big book, When I Am Frightened. Thank you for coming.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me, wing to me quietly? Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to live as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
Well, good morning and welcome again, everybody. My name is Bruce, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to be with you this morning up at the till here. We have a team of 5 who put on these services, and I like to think we kind of rotate from the grill to the till, cooking something back up there and then being in a position to present it to you up here. Although I hope that what we're offering you isn't fast food, where like you're hungry again an hour later. We're going for a low glycemic bit of spiritual nourishment here. Slow release with a balance of essential nutrients. Somebody said to me recently, you use a lot of food metaphors. Are you getting enough to eat? All right. If you're new to us here in this congregation or new to Unitarian Universalism itself, first of all, pat yourself on the back for showing up and trying us out when there are so many other places to be on a beautiful morning like this. Like lingering in bed or walking by the sea. You've made a bet that there will be something in this next hour that will stay with you at the level of the soul. Something you hear or someone you meet, some connection you make. One way to explain this faith tradition with its roots going back 2 millennia, is that it's as much a philosophy as it is a religion. It's a kind of ethical stance to meet the world from. And that ethical stance is built on the collective wisdom of the world's great religions. It's like that Dawes song we heard a couple of weeks ago. It's a little bit of everything. The biscuits and the beans. Wait a minute, there I go with the food metaphors again. The point is that the collective wisdom is there for us, all of us, and we can choose to integrate it in our lives or not. And if we don't, we risk losing it. So we try to help each other integrate that wisdom and practice it all in the spirit of trying to live lives with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. So whatever brought you to the door this morning, whatever your faith story, whatever your family story, whatever your proclivities in life and love, we hope you feel welcome here in this beautiful building we meet in each week on the traditional ancestral lands of the Coast Salish people. Now, each week we begin the proceedings by lighting a chalice, and today I've asked Martin Colombo to come up and do the honors, and I asked Martin, what's one thing that people maybe don't know about you? You want to tell us, or do you want me to?
I guess I can tell it.
You can tell it.
Well, my favorite place is Hornby Island, and I know some other people around here.
Annabelle, can we?
My favorite place is Hornby Island, and I hear some other people around here like the place too. The other day I went to the store wearing a Hornby Island t-shirt, and the lady at the till said, "Oh, I love Hornby Island." I said, "It's my favorite place." She said, "No, it's my favorite place."
And there can only be one of us that has Hornby Island. It is a wonderful spot. We kindle this flame as a symbol of our gathering. Oh man, there's very little wick there, is there?
No wick.
No wick. Here. I'm going to raid from the global candle.
Oh yeah, that is no
All right. Wow, that's poor on my part. I should have had that ready for you. All right, there you go. Thank you. All right, our second candle, thank you. A candle of joys and sorrows. Many of you will have attended Brian Bland's celebration of life here yesterday, and it was amazing. And we were saying Brian would have loved to have been there, but actually it was such a gorgeous day, he probably would have preferred to have been out on the water in his boat. But either way, a remarkable life got honored, and we have Norma to thank for the flowers you see here. Another joy, Pat Brand is back with us today after a long absence. Wonderful to have you. And also it was, have we got something else? Nah. It was Hans Krebs' birthday on Tuesday. I don't know if Hans is here, but this was a special one. It was his digit swapping birthday, a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. So on the 28th of April, 28, Hans turned 82, 82. What goes around comes around. This is what's known as the Krebs cycle. Okay, Marcia stealing some thunder from you from last week. Okay, any other joys and sorrows that people have? And you want to add? All right. So our final candle of global concerns here. Marcia and Michelle's service from last Sunday has stayed with me. Best Earth Day service ever, I'm saying. Got me thinking about this relationship we have with the planet and how she's a pretty generous partner in this arrangement. We say she, we call her Gaia, and that's fitting, I think, because there's a lot of motherly behavior going on here. She's absorbing a lot of our mistakes, sponging up our carbon waste in our oceans and forests and tundra, regrowing what we cut, regenerating what we deplete. She's trying her best to keep us alive. Imagine if humans could bring that same mindset to our interactions with one another, even strangers, like, I'm here to try to keep you alive. My role is to help you go as far as you can here. Here, climb on my shoulders. You know, there are people who live that way. We just don't tend to hear about them. Thanks, Martin. Because they're not the kind of people who make the news. It's the rampagers, not the repairers, who generate all the noise that people pay attention to. So this is the space we can balance the scales a little bit by giving our attention to the repairers. You know some of them in your family, in your community, out in the wider world. They're the ones who dedicate their lives to the work of building and rebuilding after others have torn things apart. Let's take a couple of moments of silence to hold that thought. Alrighty, so here's the highfalutin reason for a reflection on stage fright. There's a highfalutin reason and there's a meat and potatoes reason. So let's start with the origin story of the topic for today, of why public speaking, which is the great white whale of so many people, seemed like a good topic to discuss in church. Think back to COVID and what it did to us all. It drove us inside and away from each other. And yes, we had Zoom, but Zoom isn't really human contact. Basically, COVID hit us all, and we retreated into our caves, and we didn't come out, some of us, for years. And when it was over, re-entry into the land of face-to-face was slow, and it was tough. And a lot of people, I think especially young people, never fully did emerge. They're like that mythic Japanese soldier who was found in the jungle 25 years later and could not be convinced that the war was over. These folks are still hiding out online, not realizing the pandemic is over. And let's be clear that you can get through life with minimal human contact. You can sneak through most human interactions without opening your mouth in front of more than one person, virtually or even physically. But what happens when we live like that is we're training up our avoidance circuits, which makes it more and more difficult to ever face our fear of public speaking. A fear that, as studies show over and over, is not just high on the list of most people's worst nightmares, but actually number one, ahead of the fear of actually dying. So if we never deal with this, we're just caving to the low road that the whole culture is taking and detaching little by little by the human race, from the human race, and giving other people permission to do the same because they see you doing it. And so what I'm saying is, I guess this is a we problem, not a me problem. Okay, so that's the highfalutin part. The meat and potatoes reason for today is we're talking about a very specific fear that stands in for all fear. And how we deal with it, how we deal with social anxiety amounts to how we've decided to live our lives. It stands in for who we have decided to be. Think about all the sources of fear we can't do anything about, but here's one that we can. Imagine the amount of human suffering that could be alleviated if people just committed to getting on top of this one fear a little bit, just a little bit. And suffering is not too strong a word. Stage fright is such an intense personal feeling. People reach for descriptions of what it feels like when it's engulfing them. So maybe it feels a little like your heart is beating outside of your body. I heard a poet describe the feeling of stage fright like this: I feel like I'm on the moon, listening to the air hiss out of my spacesuit, and I can't find the hole. Another one described it as feeling as if somebody has cut the muscles in the back of my knees. Someone said, it's like a plumbing reversal. When you get nervous, things that are normally wet get dry, and the things that are normally dry get wet. And experience is no protection here. One guy, an accomplished and veteran podcaster and radio personality, had to give a speech recently before a live crowd, and he pronounced himself as nervous as a whippet at an air horn festival. So that's pretty funny, but it's not funny when you're in it. According to one medical study, the stress that an actor experiences during performance can equal that of a small car crash. Night after night of that. That's got to be a life shortener, I think. I've heard of nominees at the Oscars making a deal with the gods. Okay, I don't want to win. That way at least I won't have to get up there and speak. That should not be a fair fight, talking for a minute or winning an Oscar. What's bizarre is that the feeling is so out of scale with what is actually at stake. I remember a guy whose dad was a Navy SEAL talking about a training exercise that SEAL recruits get put through. So they're tossed in a deep pool with their ankles tied together and their hands tied behind their back. It's to teach them to stave off panic, because if you panic, you drown in that instance, or at least you swallow water and you black out and you come to on the pool deck staring into the scowling face of a sergeant who revived you. With your legs and your hands tied, your only move is to let yourself sink to the bottom and push off, take one gasping breath at the surface and sink again. And repeat that over and over for you don't know how long. Eventually what happens is you rewire your brain to stay calm in the hottest of hot states there. But here's the thing, and the reason I'm telling you this. Even after this training, a lot of Navy SEALs, if they have to get up and give a speech, they still have stage fright. How could that be? What could be worse than the fear of drowning in the next 5 seconds? And the answer is that social fear cuts through all that because social fear is different. Social fear is about identity. It's about the gap between who you are presenting yourself as and who you privately feel yourself to be. I've actually spent a bit of time thinking about this because I used to suffer pretty bad stage fright. And after a gentle nudge from somebody who cared about me enough to tell me the truth that I sucked pretty badly at public presentation, I joined a speaking club and even developed a little series of workshop modules called Public Speaking for Introverts. Anyway, and by the way, you don't say, anyway, that's a bad bridge. A lot of this boils down to understanding that what's happening with stage fright is that an ancient part of your brain is trying to protect you. Back on the savannah, if you were staring at a bunch of strangers, it meant there was a non-zero chance you were going to end up in the stew pot tonight. Strangers equaled threat. But now, a million years later, that ding, 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 strangers equal threat, that's a false alarm. It's fake news that you can learn to safely ignore. And when you think about it, detecting threats that aren't real, that may be the main project of our lives and the path to mental health. And that is the true value of practicing public speaking. If we can get on top of this phony threat, then suddenly, whoa, the gate swings open to tackle all the other phony threats that hold us back in other areas of our lives. Face the public speaking demon, and suddenly you have the strength in your sword arm to face all your demons. It's that damn gap between who we are presenting ourselves to be and who we feel ourselves to be. That gap is a moist little cave with perfect conditions for fear to grow, what I call the fear of being known. Who here has had to give a speech at a wedding or an important business meeting, and you can almost, right now, viscerally call up that feeling in your stomach 10 seconds before they said you're on? It's to walk up there and just reveal yourself, the before and after of that moment. The poet John O'Donohue says we're crossing a kind of sacred threshold there, the threshold between not being seen and being seen. Being seen. Not just being seen, but being seen for who you actually are. And this is where nature plays kind of a diabolical trick on us. What's so debilitating about stage fright is it seems to peel back our skin and expose our true identity, but at the same time, it sabotages our ability to properly demonstrate our true identity, right? Nerves get in the way of your actual personality. They steal your ability to reveal the strengths you have, the things that make you you. Do you remember the film critics, Siskel and Ebert? So Roger Ebert told this story about the time he and Gene Siskel were just getting going in their careers, and they'd been invited on the Johnny Carson show, their big break. And backstage, they were so scared, they turned to each other and they both realized they couldn't think of the name of a single movie. When the amygdala comes online, danger, danger, the thinky part of the front of your brain goes out. All that blood and energy is needed elsewhere in the body, maybe into your legs so you can run the heck out of there. And even the most verbally adept people turn into kindergartners. The silver lining in all this is that sometimes that fear can be felt by the audience as a kind of energy that's compelling. Sometimes the power of a speech is directly proportional to how vulnerable you actually are. There's a line I used to have pasted up somewhere to remind me of the power of being brave in your writing. And the quote is, "If you want to write a good book, write about the things you don't want others to know about you. If you want to write a great book, write about the things you don't want to know about yourself." That's hardcore. That is exposure. One theater critic compared the situation to that of a snail having its shell ripped off. You are making an offer of your vulnerability. And this is why a lot of rappers, when they're up on stage, the first thing they do is grab their crotch. And this is not my own wild speculation. This comes from the rapper Jay-Z. It's his wild speculation, I guess, but it's informed by experience. He said, when this kind of business is going on, it's not the rapper trying to be all macho. It's not showboating. It's performance anxiety. He said many of them are not accustomed to live performance. You get up there, you feel naked, and when you feel naked, what's the first thing you do? You cover yourself. Wild. So there's always this internal push and pull. How much of myself am I going to reveal here? Will I cover myself, or will I show the world who I am, quirks and all? I remember after the Olga book came out, I got the opportunity slash frightening ordeal of doing talks before some really big groups. And one was a keynote at a conference of the Canadian Home Care Association in the grand ballroom of the Banff Springs Hotel. The French president, François Hollande, had just spoken there the night before, and his security detail was just leaving as I was arriving. I was so nervous the night before, I couldn't sleep, and I remember pacing the hallways of the hotel. The Banff Springs, if you can picture it, it's rumored to be haunted, and guests have seen a spectral figure roaming around at night, supposedly the ghost of a murdered chambermaid. But I think it's probably just somebody who had to give a speech in the ballroom the next day. So come morning, it's showtime. People are filing in. There's a buzz in the room. 400 people. I get introduced, and I'm suddenly standing at the lectern, and I had planned to open with a little joke, and now that seemed kind of risky. So it's like, do I try this or not? And you calculate in the couple of seconds you have there, and I'm going, well, the light stuff is kind of who I am, so maybe I should. And I opened my mouth, and I said something like, it's lovely to be with you. Thank you to the organizers for the kind invitation. It's wild to be standing here in the same spot that the French president was standing in just 12 hours ago. I think I can still smell his aftershave. You say, thank you. I could have used you on that day because silence. Absolute crickets. And now, granted, it's not a great joke, but I wasn't expecting a huge guffaw, but I wasn't expecting that. And I spent the next half hour trying to dig my way out of that hole and get back into my skin, in a sense. So, wow, that all came back a little bit. Now, I know I hinted that the secret of getting over social anxiety is practice, kind of doing it over and over. Your body learns that it was telling you a phony baloney story. You thought you were going to die, and then you didn't die. And when you don't die, over and over again, the panic kind of subsides, and you realize that it's just an evolutionary holdover that you can safely ignore, and that is a powerful secret to learn. But there's another secret that's even more powerful, and I think this is the real goods. Think of the last time you saw a really great public speaker. Chances are they had a quality like, it's almost as if you felt like they were speaking directly to you somehow, like they knew what you wanted to hear, what you needed to hear. They were scratching an itch that you had. How could they know? This gentleman is Mr. Yoo-Hoo. His real name is Moshe Cohen, but he goes by Mr. Yoo-Hoo as a stage name. He's around 70 years old now. He still travels around the world doing his shtick. And sometimes he goes to war zones as part of a group called Clowns Without Borders. So one time, he was performing in Chiapas, Mexico. And the show seemed to be going pretty well. And at the end of it, Mr. Yoo-Hoo announced, and now for my last trick, I'm going to make you all disappear. And with that, he took off his glasses. So that joke always got a laugh, but not this time. It was dead silence. And he thought, what is going on? Why had this gag bombed? And Mr. Yoo-hoo put his glasses back on and he looked at the audience, and then he understood. No one out there was wearing glasses, not a single person. They were too poor to wear glasses, so they didn't get the joke. And Mr. Yoo-hoo had a little aha moment there. He always had this locked-in routine, same one he delivered to every crowd, one size fits all. But now he recognized the flaw in that. No two audiences are the same. Mr. Yoo-hoo vowed, from now on, I'm going to try to see my show through their eyes. I'm going to make the whole point of this thing to delight them in a way that's uniquely satisfying for them. Who are they? Who are these people? What private battles are they fighting? What can I offer them to make their life just a little bit better today? Now, the magic of this approach is that when you do that, you put the spotlight on them and you take it off of you. I like this. Humility isn't about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. So there it is, the idea that in my mind is pretty close to the secret of life. And it also turns out to be pretty close to the secret of banishing stage fright, unselfing. And when a public speaker makes that shift from me to you, something amazing happens. The fear diminishes. It doesn't completely go away, but it's no longer debilitating. So stage fright really is about intense self-focus, and if you can flip that around, you're off to the races. Do you recognize this young woman? It's Amanda Gorman, who gave that amazing performance at Joe Biden's inauguration. She said later she was wicked nervous, just like she is before every poetry reading she does. For most of her life, Amanda had a speech impediment, and that made her terrified to perform. So she developed a little routine to gather herself, to give herself a little injection of courage. She thinks of it as a prayer. It's really a conversation with the dead, with her ancestors. So just before she goes on, her mind suddenly silently recites this mantra. I am the daughter of black riders who descended from freedom fighters who broke their chains and changed the world. They are calling me now. And what that does for her is immediately locate her why, her reason for doing this, because it answers two questions. On whose shoulders do I stand, and what do I stand for? And when you can answer those two questions for yourself, you understand, okay, I am no longer the show, I'm just the messenger. The thing I'm doing here is an act of service. And now the monkey of self-consciousness, which is the root of all social anxiety, just hopped off your back. It is a sacred thing, I believe, to be able to share the gift of your story, your art, with other people. It is a holy thing. And when you realize that, your ego steps back out of the frame. There was a horn player in the Sydney Symphony Orchestra who got terribly nervous before every performance. She was a principal, a section lead, so it's kind of a high-pressure job. You know, it's especially tough for musicians or singers, I think, as many of you know, because unlike other performers, dancers or actors, you're pinned in place there, right? You're just sitting there or standing. And some of you who are in the choir, who've been called on by Allison to perform a solo, will identify with this. The tension has nowhere to go. Somebody said, stage fright is passion energy that's stuck in the body. So this horn player would show up to play at the Sydney Opera House before this huge crowd, and there were times she almost couldn't come out of the dressing room. She was paralyzed by nerves. What helped her turn the corner was the day she looked around at her colleagues, each one of them an individual, with their own life and their own battles, their own nerves. And she says to herself, okay, Buttercup, look, I'm section lead. I'm setting the tone. The others are taking their cues from me. It's my responsibility to make these people feel safe by choosing to play as confidently as possible. And that was the tweak. I'm here to make my wingmen and wingwomen feel safe. There's a Seth Godin line. When you think you're flailing in the dark, just remember you yourself are giving off a lot of light, and other people are navigating by you. One of the coolest things about being involved with the youth group here when we had one, was seeing our young people come out of their shells. A lot of you youth, as you know, are wonderfly weird. They're a little different from their classmates, and they often didn't fit in at school that well, but here they were safe. And you could just sort of see the tank filling up as they came week on week. But the most nerve-wracking thing they participated in was the coming of age ceremony. When the youth turned 13, and there's a whole service devoted to honoring their passage basically from kids to adults. And there's a ritual where they write a personal creed. This is who I am now. This is what I believe right now. And then they deliver that statement of faith in front of the whole congregation. If ever there were a circumstance to test the fear of being known, that's it. And the courage you would see there in that instance, some of them couldn't go through with it. Most of them found a way to do it. They found their why. Their why was some sense of mission, who they were doing it for. And partly they were doing it for their parents. And partly they were doing it for the mentor that they'd been paired up with. And they were doing it for the rest of us in the congregation. And partly they were doing it for themselves. And I thought, this is the value of youth group. It's asking those questions of ourselves: what do I owe, and to whom, and how much, and how can I express that in a way that feels true to me? All right, one more little story. There's a guy I know a little bit called Franco Scanga. And Franco has an amazing story around stage fright. He was involved in this side project I have going called One Big Day, where I kind of feature epic things people have taken on in a single day. And this one Franco called his Fearless Challenge. Okay, so Franco's from Oshawa, Ontario. He's a tech manager at a community college there. And he always had a debilitating fear of public speaking. And this became a problem at his workplace because sometimes he had to lead meetings. And one time his boss called him into the office and said, close the door. And he said, Franco, you're a nice guy, but you are possibly the worst communicator I have ever met. And if you don't up your speaking game, I don't know what I can do for you. So Franco knew he had to deal with this. And the spur to do that finally came out of the blue a few weeks later, when Franco's dad got a diagnosis of colon cancer. The doctors hadn't caught it very early, and it now had advanced, and it was clear that probably he was in the end game now. And as the cancer moved from his dad's colon to his lungs and laid him low and put the fear into him and into Franco, seeing his dad in pain, Franco found himself thinking, I wish I could trade places with you. And now Franco knew he couldn't fight his father's battle. He couldn't take on the cancer, but maybe he could take on his own fear, his own battle with his own fears, and maybe he could do that in a way that honored his father at the same time. So Franco Scanga's Fearless Challenge was born. Franco thought, what if I try to break some record for public speaking and raise money for cancer research at the same time? He wondered, maybe, is there a Guinness Book of World Records record for most speeches in 24 hours? Turns out there is a record like that. Ralph Nader set it in his 2008 presidential campaign. He gave 21 speeches in one day. He started giving speeches at 8 in the morning and knocked off his 21st speech at 1 a.m. And Franco thought, I can beat that. And here was the hook. The speech would tell the story of his father, guts on guts, right? But then Franco discovered that there was an asterisk on that record. After Nader said it, the Guinness people huddled up and said, that's too easy. We gotta change the rules here. You can't just deliver the same speech over and over anymore. Each speech has to be unique. And you have to do it from memory, no notes. And you have to do it in a succession of different venues with at least 10 people in the audience each time. They really put some rigor around this. 15 people had attempted to break Nader's record under these new rules, and all of them failed. But Franco was undeterred. He said, I'm going for 23, one extra for good measure. 23 speeches in 24 hours, my fearless challenge. So Franco began to train like it was an athletic event, which it was, kind of. He started a jump rope regime to build stamina and energy. He changed his diet, more protein, less starch and sugar. He reached out to a number of experts on vocal training. He didn't want to go dry. And then came the memory work. He wrote out 23 speeches, and he painstakingly learned them through a system of mental pictures. He imagined each speech as a house. The roof is the opening quote. Top floor, your key message. One floor down, some sort of connector to make the abstract message land with this particular audience in this particular town. And I know it sounds a bit formulaic, but he wasn't fooling around. He needed a structure that was absolutely bomb-proof, that would hold up no matter how nervous or tired he was. And then he visited in advance each venue he would be speaking at, and he ran through his memory palace technique in each of them. He worked so hard. He gave himself every chance to pull this off. So did he do it? I'm thinking I might link to the story I wrote about him when we do a Think Again next week. But for the purposes of this reflection, whether he succeeded doesn't matter, although I will share that he did raise $17,800 for the Canadian Cancer Society. And the point is that the only way he could have ever mustered the courage for something like that, to take on the fear, is if he had a higher why happening here. Franco's 22nd and last speech on that day. I guess I kind of am giving away whether he was successful or not by telling you that. His last stop was the Italian Club in Oshawa, which his father, a bricklayer, had helped to build. When Franco arrived at that stop, he was so whipped and so full of emotion that his brain really wasn't working anymore. So he gave his brain the rest of the night off, and he just called on his heart. And he abandoned his planned speech, and he just talked about his dad. He was just freestyling now. He was beyond fear. He was being powered at this point by pure devotion. There's Franco, and that's his dad. And I think Franco's plotting out his route, and his speech is there. You can't fight an emotion as formidable as fear with just rationality, like by telling yourself, don't be scared. It doesn't work. You have to swamp it with a competing emotion. You have to invite a more powerful emotion into the arena to compete with the fear. And maybe that emotion is delight, or gratitude for the opportunity, or excitement at feeling things so acutely in this moment, confirmation that, by God, I'm alive right now. And these strategies can work to some degree, but the one competing emotion that can reliably conquer fear is love. Love conquers fear. Love is the antidote to fear. And I know that sounds like a platitude, but I don't know if there are many things more true than that. Studies show, blah, 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 but this actually has been tested, that one of the most powerful ways to dampen stage fright is to remind yourself that however this goes, you're going to be okay because you have people in your life who love you. And then there's the next step. Just before you go on, you think of one specific person. You think of the person you love most in the world, dead or alive. And this is where it all starts to become a little bit spiritual. Where there is your fear, there is your task. Your task. Do you have one? I think you do. I can't prove it, but I think you do. That's when fear is telling you, put me in, coach, and your body's saying, this matters so much to me. My job is just to give it my whole heart. Is Leslie Gibbons here? No, not today. Well, I was going to say, I hope you listen to this after, because here's something that Maurice told me, just as an outshot here. For the rest of you, Maurice Gibbons, longtime member of this community, accomplished in so many ways. He and I had a long lunch one time, and we kept circling around his personal philosophy, and I got the sense he was sneaking in a little bit of life advice just for me, no charge. Maurice's feeling was that a low arousal life is no life at all. He said, Always do the thing you're afraid to do. The things and situations that make you nervous are a roadmap to your own happiness. Don't duck that charge. The fears you avoid become stronger while you become weaker. The fears you confront become weaker while you become stronger. And then he said, it's your choice. He kind of leaned in. You can expand your world or watch it shrink. That's the deal. Geez Louise, for all of us, may it ever be so.
I would invite us all just to stay seated for this and just let the words of Bruce just sink into yourself. Notice what jumps out for you. What's your story to listen to? How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
We have a new charity this month to start the month. It's Oceanwise. On the heels of Earth Day, we have another environmental-themed charity called Oceanwise, because if we save the sea, we save the world, in theory. So these guys tackle plastic pollution and chemical pollution, plus underwater noise that disturbs or kills marine fauna. It's a great charity. And thank you to everybody for your generosity. These charities we support depend on groups like this. as funding keeps getting cut for them. And I know it's not a lot, but it's the consistency that we keep coming through with for them that it makes such a huge difference. So thank you. Alrighty. Some announcements. We've got, we don't have lunch today, but we have some snacks and we have coffee, and I encourage everybody to hang around and visit as much time as you have today. Sometimes this is the only contact we get with each other for the whole week. We have another walking group session coming up, and we meet at End of the Line Cafe, second Saturday of each month here. So one coming up on Saturday. And there's two groups, so if you feel like you want to, there's a speedy group and a not-so-speedy group, and the speedy group tackles terrain and the not-so-speedy group doesn't. It's a lovely way. We've done it once, had a good turnout. Please join us if you can. Next Sunday is a Mother's Day service. Now, I saw Rebecca's description of this, and it sounds amazing. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but it's about mothering in the broadest sense, so this is relevant to all of us, whether you have children or not. Someone's going to share a personal story that's very powerful, not to be missed. Anything else anyone wants to add to announcements before we wrap up with our closing song? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to close up with one more step.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us and everyone. We'll take one more step, one more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word, one more prayer. We will say one more prayer, till every word is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer, one more song. We will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
You can stay standing. I got about a minute to go here. So just a little food for thought on the way out this morning. Here's a question. What if AI asks us if there is a God? This is from the futurist Kevin Kelly. He reckons this is something we're going to have to be ready for. There's this new entity that's being born into the world. It's going to grow up to be who knows what, stronger than us probably. But right now, it's a piece of raw clay that we can have some influence on. It's going to be up to us to teach it how to be good and to do good. It's going to have a lot of questions, and we'd better have some good answers. So here's how Kevin imagines the exchange. Bot. Is there a God, like some humans say? Human. There is no explanation for the origin of the universe that is logically satisfactory. The alternative explanation of God is equally unsatisfactory, but it makes for a great story. Use the story if it helps you attain your best goodness, truth, and beauty. Your job is to surprise your God with your most improbable existence. Let's turn out the light for today. We extinguish this flame. The world calls us to live with depth, meaning, and purpose. Thank you to everybody who made this service possible today. Thanks, Cloud, for being my heart outside my body. Thank you all for coming on such a beautiful day. Let's circle up.
Lord.